about, you know, last time I know we chatted about listings, and so we're going to kind of do a little bit of a 180 today and talk about buyers.
Yeah, we're really excited because we always feel like, there's a lot of resources on the listing side, and we wanted to provide more resources for our agents to be able to really set themselves apart beyond just what is in the listing when a new person conversation is had about a listing and being able to give a little bit more detail to that.
Yep, yep. And I think that as we're seeing in so many areas the market beginning to shift, I think that there's going to be some more and more conversations happening around the buy side. So today, one of the things that we're going to focus on is again kind of focusing on the buyer side. We've got some really good resources, some new things we want to show you. And the other thing I like about today, as we were kind of doing our show prep, it's very practical. So a lot of these things, it's sometimes good to, talk about the fancy stuff, talk about the new AI stuff, but also make sure that we're doing those basics. So we're going to cover kind of a mix of both of those today. So with that in mind, I will go ahead and share my screen and always ask the infamous question. Amy, I'm assuming you got a thumbs up and can
You're
see my
good.
screen. Sounds good.
Yep.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is when it comes to buyers, everyone immediately thinks of the home search. And we're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about that with a little bit of an asterisk. Because from a standpoint, everyone says, well, how am I going to beat homes.com or Zillow or realtor.com? And I always say that let them play their game and change the rules a little bit and win at your own game. And ultimately what that means is making it super easy for the consumer. It's going to sound weird. I'm gonna explain this, but essentially, if someone goes to your site, I actually told an agent this the other day, and they kind of looked at me like I was strange, but I'll explain. I said, if someone goes to your site and they have to use the search tool, you've already lost. And you may think, well, wait a second. Of course, we want people searching, on the site. We do, but in a little bit of a different way. And let me explain and kind of show some examples that and I think everyone can relate to this. Everyone out there who's listening and on this call right now, you are probably really good at being able to find the unique things from the MLS. You understand the nuances when you are directly not just on your site or on Zillow, but when you're actually logged into Paragon or whatever your MLS is. You understand those nuances. You know that there's a field for condo, but that's condo building is a free form text, and some people misspell condos wrong, the name wrong. So instead, you know that you've got to search by address, and you've got all these little quirks that you can get the right data out of. Or maybe there's a field that explicitly says what you're looking for of, I don't know, homes with acreage or a certain, feature, but in your industry or your geographic area that only 5% of agents will actually populate that field. So you've got to search another way. So we've all been there. We all know and kind of know those little nuances about the market. But the consumer doesn't realize that, right? So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and show them and give them the end result instead of making them create that search for them. I always say that people don't want to search for properties. They want to find a home. You could ask my wife, I am notorious for losing. I flew the other day and I walked out and forgot my wallet, lost my wallet. They still let me fly, but I am notorious for losing my keys or losing my wallet or whatever. I don't like searching for my wallet. I like finding my wallet. So that's a key differentiator, right? So a person doesn't enjoy searching for their homes. They enjoy finding the home. So that's what it's all about and making sure that we can help them find that home just as quick as possible. And preferably within 1 to 2 clicks without them having to even touch the keyboard. So let me show you what I mean by this, and I'll give you a couple examples. So I love the way the Reigns Group has this set. They've got a very simple search up here. I can just put in a geographic area and one click and I am searching. I didn't have to fill out any complicated forms or anything like that. Additionally, I can click on the new listings or the home sold, or I can find my particular neighborhood in 1 to 2 clicks. And literally, as soon as I click this, I am immediately searching for homes. So I think that's a huge thing. Now, of course, that's a lot of listings, so people probably aren't going to just start there. They're going to refine. And I love, here's another good example. If you go to Linda and look at her quote unquote search page, again, it's a very similar thing where you've got where do you want to search from a geography standpoint? And I've got all my history of the items I've searched for, price and location. That is 99% of where people start, right? But more importantly, you'll see as I scroll down, she's already done the hard work for me. So trending searches, homes with an office, ranch homes, most expensive, homes with a pool, homes with in-law suites. So I don't have to, I'm going to manually go here so I can show you. I don't have to go to the search tool and then go down here to more filters and figure out, is it interior feature? Is it exterior feature? What is it that's going to make it so where I can find that home office or what have you? She understands the nuances of the MLS, so she's already done that hard work for me. And if I want to see homes with a pool or golf course homes or anything like that, one click and I am immediately looking at golf course homes that I can refine based off of my price point or what have you. So this is the first step, is just making it easy. Go through your site and kind of say, can I find the home, not search, but find the home that I want when the style of I want, within 1 to 2 clicks, without ever having to tap on my keyboard. So if I want to search by an area, she's got that. Search by a neighborhood, I can look up a neighborhood, and then here's all kinds of great features. Not only does this help from a consumer standpoint, but what do you think that does when she has a dedicated page of homes with a pool or golf course homes or anything like that? Amy, I know you work a lot with different clients that are kind of in that. Talk a little bit about the power of not just the search result, but how Google views that as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because of the fact that we know that when people are searching for specific features, they're a lot lower in the funnel. So you
Yep.
want to be able to grab them. Most, Zillow and Realtor and all these other places that are really trying to catch people, they don't necessarily get really detailed, and sometimes you don't get a lot of search key terms to run ads for those. So that's where the organic SEO really wins. And so those terms like homes with a pool, homes with a basement, you're looking in, Raleigh homes with a pool or Cary homes with a pool. Now it's gotten much more granular. And so you're able to have that placement as far as in Google search. And just beyond, and I know, Brad, if you'll click on that homes with a pool with Linda, she goes a little bit step further, where she's not just showcasing the results of the search, but also gives more context to it as well. So it goes even more into what it's like to have a home with a pool. So then we're
Yep.
really leveraging that organic SEO as well.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden she even breaks down, again, I can look if I want a homes with a pool, I can choose my price point and immediately be looking at homes in that in my particular price point. She has her listings that's featured, etc. And then I like it because she always kind of focuses that balance of not just for buyers, but so many of those buyers are what we consider synchronous sellers, which means that whether I'm buying a home and first have to sell my home, or I'm, first buy a home and then sell. Those two transactions are happening, within 40, 60, 90 days of each other. And so she's got some great calls to action, that if you do have a home or thinking of buying, thinking of selling, she's focusing on that as far as with those, calls to actions. And then Amy, to your point, talking about like all of this is just great information from an SEO standpoint, where, if I'm looking at if I'm looking at a home specifically with a pool, it's essentially confirmation bias, right? I'm already excited about having a home from the pool. I'm dreaming about being able to entertain and oh, I think I'm going to get higher values and year-round fun, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing that definitely can focus on there. So yeah, and it doesn't matter whether it's geography based, whether it's feature based. Um, breaking down things like even inventory in a particular neighborhood, a particular building. And so, again, in a case like this, I love this setup here because if I know I love continuing South Beach, all the amenities it has and everything really quickly, I can filter and see homes for sale, one bedroom, two bedroom, three. I'm again not having to engage with my keyboard, but I can go in and anytime that you can give that information in what's kind of considered like a more of a, I call it like that lean back type surfing, where I can lean back and just kind of navigate with my mouse or with my, trackpad or on my phone versus having to, lean in and engage. All of a sudden, you're going to hear things like, oh, your site is so easy to use and everything because they don't feel like they're doing work because they're just tapping and navigating through here. So it's a great opportunity to really make that a very user-friendly site. And we get that feedback all the time when it is that like lean back, one, two click type searches.
One other thing, Brad, is that when you do already create those searches for the site, it's another great way to leverage that for your email marketing, for your social
Yeah.
media posts, even for any type of YouTube videos where you can highlight those specific searches. And now you've got a link, something that you can leverage so that you can get out in front of a lot of different people. And to your point, it can be features, it can be based on condos, it can be based on the latest 20 listings that have just hit the market. So it can look a lot of different
Yep.
ways.
And I want to show you a trick that not a lot of people know about. Amy, I know you're very familiar with this, but you kind of reminded me of something that all of these are searches that are set up. So let's click on golf course homes one more time. And I'm going to go up to the address bar. And you see, it may be hard because I can't zoom in on this, unfortunately, but where it says results. So this link, I can go in and paste this link and put it on social media and all that stuff. And people can immediately see, homes for sale with in a golf course, etc. But here's the other thing you can do is change that word results to save. And now when you give that link out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in an incognito so it will trigger. So now when I do that, I immediately have a sign up. And if I put my information in, guess what? I am now going to be proactively getting listing alerts of homes that match that criteria, golf course homes. And and the agent didn't have to do anything. So this is a great way to proactively say, hey, keep up to date with homes in your neighborhood or homes with a pool or whatever, and let the user pretty much build their, your own immediate landing page, if you will, where I can go in and pull in, put my name and email. And as soon as I do that, not only am I looking at immediately see where I'm looking at those properties, but more importantly, every time that new listing comes on the market or there's a price reduction, I'm going to get that alert. So you as the agent don't have to log into the back end and go, oh, Amy clicked for, search for golf course homes. Let me go in, log in as her, set up a search for her, get listing alerts, blah, blah, blah. Nope, one click, she can essentially set that up herself. So that is a great opportunity to take those pages and by changing one word, turning that into a great call to action there. Um, so wanted to kind of talk about along those same lines, a couple of other things here. We looked at, Linda's where she does a fantastic job of kind of having these curated searches already set. Here's a Dano, a very similar thing, but I wanted to kind of showcase this where, again, searching by price point, searching by specific features or trend, what we call kind of trending searches, homes with a pool, oceanfront, vacation condos, and then being able to search by, a geography and different condos and everything like that. It's a fantastic way to just have that, one click and go. And more so, this can help not only with those searches, but also I love what Riverwild has done. This is a not necessarily a page that they promote a lot. It's almost kind of for that back end kind of. We use this for creating social media graphics from, but also just staying in the loop of kind of those market stats for different homes. So these are nothing but saved searches that they have set up. But I love this because in a flash, I can see what's the average price per square foot. And if I'm looking at this, kind of seeing what's trending or not, how many homes have sold in Clayton this week, how many went under contract, total, inventory. And so by looking at this, I think I saw Bobby on the call. He can probably tell you because he probably looks at this, multiple times a week, and to see, oh, hey, this number is actually up or down compared to weeks past, or here's kind of what we're seeing from a trending price per square foot. So these are great ways to not only keep up to date, but also these are great resources for buyers to be able to see what's happening with the market because market data obviously is another thing that is just absolutely so important there. So. Um, so based off of that, we've kind of gone through and we're kind of going through the typical workflow of the buying funnel, right? So originally you've got these people who are starting on bigger things like price and location. So we're focusing on that from that standpoint of those home searches, starting with that price and location. Then they begin to narrow that search even more. They're starting to look at, they start to look at some homes. They start to look at want to know market data, et cetera. We talked about that. Now let's talk about once they've done that, once they've gone through and looked at a couple of properties, what is that next step? And that is to proactively start pushing more listings directly to them to their inbox. Because again, this is all a name of convenience. It doesn't matter a lot of times when they're starting out their search, they're not yet loyal to a specific brand. It is whoever is giving me the most relevant information the quickest. And there's a keyword there, and that is relevant information. There's a lot of tools out there that Zillow does this. If I look at something or just based off of, other sites that if I go in and do a search with a max price of 800,000 in Raleigh, now all of a sudden every day I'm getting listing alerts from 0 to 800,000 in Raleigh. And now I look at, oh, Susie is sending me that. Well, Susie doesn't understand me. Why the heck would she send me $100,000 lot or $100,000 home that needs a ton of work when I'm really looking at an $800,000 home in Raleigh? So once you have that, what you can begin to do is go in the back end and start to look at what type of properties they are looking at, and then based off of that, set up an appropriate search that is more, curated. Again, that's that theme that we're talking about today is more curated than just, hey, here is that simple price and location or these very broad brush strokes. We're going to try to kind of narrow that down because what we want to do is we want to make sure you as the agent is seen as like, oh, this agent just gets me. They understand exactly what I'm looking for. So here's a great example where if you look at this, it's like okay, great, multi-million dollar, million dollar plus homes, but there's something that goes beyond this. If you, with the exception of this one, if you look at the acreage, 29 acres, 18 acres, 44 acres. Four is a little bit lower, 76 acres. Like obviously these are properties with a lot of acreage. And by digging into this, you quickly find that the common thread in all of these is they're equestrian properties. So in looking at this makes sense that this is million dollar plus equestrian properties and these overall geographies. And so now it looks like this person's been set up on a save search where we're proactively feeding directly in their inbox these particular properties that match that search. That took beyond just looking and saying, oh, well, this person, wants a they don't want a golf course property or they don't want something in that case. They're looking for something very unique. So for the agent to kind of understand that and then have that kind of a little bit more curated, then they're showing a lot more value to the agent, or excuse me, to the consumer. Um, so based off of that, let's kind of dig in and look at that a little bit more because we kind of now we're in step three here where got them when they are just searching for the price and location. Number two is now we're beginning to see their search habits. And we can send them a little bit more of a curated list, a proactive list. So what's that third step is something that you know I think that something that a lot of times people I know they've given this feedback. Amy, you probably heard this too, where someone goes in and is looking at that property. Of course, nowadays there's a ton of information any property that you see, whether it's on, Linda site or Zillow, again, Realtor.com, pretty much whoever it is, there's going to be just gobs and gobs of information. So I know a lot of times what happens is when you've got this key thing here where they are requesting more information, the agent goes, "What more information can I give?" Right?
Or not just that, they'll also get, let's say that someone's looked through, it's like for in this example, maybe they went into each of those ones that they viewed and hit the request more information. So you may get five different requests for information for five different properties and you're juggling, showings and you're doing all these other things. So you're like, how do I optimize my time so I'm not
Yeah.
getting in there to figure out what is it that beyond sending the virtual tour or digging in to be able to provide that value.
Yeah, so it's so true. So, whether it's one person, what or they, we've seen that where they request multiple properties, or that you're proactively, you have an agency agreement, you're representing a buyer, and they're wanting to know more information. You want to be able to show that you are providing that value. But again, you're saying, well, there's not much additional information beyond what is, what's in the MLS, and therefore what's on the site. So what I want to show you is a super cool tool that you could use that is totally going to differentiate you from the competition, and you will never have to worry about what additional information that that I have to worry about getting when someone does that quote unquote request for more information. So we're going to jump over to DAC Lab, and if you log in, you will see two new tools. We're continually expanding these tools. There's two new tools that we have. One's kind of big rewrite and enhancement, and the other one's brand new, is the listing strategy blueprints and the buyer strategy blueprints. So we'll jump over here. I don't have any reports, so I'm going to create my first report, and I'm just going to grab one of Linda's listings here. Um, and let's see here. Just going to click here, 135. All right. And so let's say that someone is requesting information and they're considering, you know, putting in an offer, or you can go in and you don't, have to put this in, but let's see. Okay, so let's just kind of guess or assume that they're going to pay around, the asking price for that home, and then I can go in and generate if someone has requested more information on one of my listings or any listing for that matter. You could put literally any property in the United States and put what you think that property, that target offer, and it will generate a complete buyer report of that particular home. And this is going to go well beyond just what's listed in the MLS. So this is fantastic when someone is saying, "Hey, I'm interested in more information about this particular property." So let's take a quick look. And of course, you've got the ability. It's going to use AI to give all kinds of information based off of market analysis, etc. But if you want to go in and edit anything, of course, you've got that ability to go in and edit as you see fit, and to really separate yourself. But let's look at what kind of a typical listing may look like. What's in the MLS. Yeah, they're going to get the description and everything, but there's not a lot of beyond just kind of the basic information. Well, if I'm representing in this case Amy, and Amy's thinking about going in and putting an offer on this particular property. Well, I've got some insights that the MLS is now not going to tell me that I can show a value to Amy, such as I can see the last, not just the last time it was sold for, but I can see the current market value, how much appreciation, and it will calculate based off of how much the seller has put down to see how much equity is in the home beyond just the appreciation, because of course we've got amortization and all that stuff. So I see that this person has $850,000 of equity in the home. That's a great negotiation, tool for me, because I know if they're underwater or if there's not a lot of equity, they may not be in quite that position to negotiate. It's going to do a analysis on the property, going to go through what the target offer is, the list price, what the estimated kind of computer value is. It's going to go through and look at price history to see what it was, the max price it was listed at. We're going to be able to kind of go through and show like a pros and cons of that home, comparable market analysis. It's going to pull in what the market temperature is. So it's going to look at the market temperature of that home relative to the local market, relative to the national market. So I could see in this price point around that home, it's a little bit of a cooler market. So again, if I'm representing Amy, or if Amy has requested more information on that property, now all of a sudden I can again use that as a negotiation thing where it says like, "Hey, Amy, we're in a better position to negotiate because the market's a little bit cooler in the area." Um, See what the median list price in that area, median sold price. So we know this property is going to, sit kind of as an outlier above other homes in that same geographic area. That most of the homes in that area are sitting at around 850,000. So this is definitely a little bit of an outlier there. How long it's been on the market? What's the buyer advantage? Negotiating strategy, it just goes on and on, so being able to go through and create a complete analysis and report for Amy that I then can go in and share that as a link, so I can say, hey, Amy, I've got some additional information on that property as a link, or I can download that PDF and send that to her as a PDF. Now, all of a sudden, my value when she's gone in and requested information, statistics are going to show she's probably going to request information, with me and then three other agents, and three other agents are basically going to scratch their head and say, uh, it's all in the MLS. It's all on, my site and Zillow. What more information do you want? Versus what I'm going to do is I'm going to differentiate myself and say, hey, Amy, I've actually created, if you're interested in this property, a complete strategy blueprint on that particular property, including some negotiation tips if we decide, to work together and move forward, etc. So that's just one use case. I could use this same report for, if I'm representing Amy and Amy's kind of narrowed it down to one or two homes, I can kind of show her this report to say, hey, here's how, we can, approach things from a negotiation standpoint. Um, or we can, even if I have this home listed, I can show this to, if Amy's the homeowner, I can say, hey, here's how buyers are going to perceive. Here's how it looks like from a buying standpoint and a buyer point of view. So I'm a big fan, honestly. If you have a listing, I would run both the listing strategy blueprint and the buyer strategy blueprint for that listing. And because then it's going to show you those two different perspectives of how a buyer may perceive your home versus how we're going to, the strategy on how to list your home. So,
Hey,
I mean,
Brad, and I would, while you're saying that, I think this is really important because of just sort of the state of the market right now. And I know that agents are having to have a lot of hard conversations with sellers who have very high expectations for what they expect to get for their home. And so when you are having to have those conversations to make some price adjustments, being able to say, well, here's why we're making this, call on this, or this,
yeah,
we're letting the data really drive it. It's not necessarily what we're doing. We're just looking at what the market is telling us. So it
totally,
just gives
totally.
you,
Yep.
more backing for those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, such a good point. And I like this because again, it's going to be branded to the agent and their colors, their information. The other thing is what we're looking at now is kind of the view that the buyer is going to get. And this is obviously a lot of data. So the other thing I really like about it is you literally can chat with AI about that property. So you can say, what's how's the market compare in this? Is 1.35, is that a fair offer? How does this relate to comps, et cetera, et cetera? So it's nice where even if, there are some people who like the details, who like all the price per square foot and the analysis. Some people are like, give me the highlights, so they literally can just chat with AI about this and be able to get that quick overview. So that's great. And then of course on the back end, you'll be able to see how often they're looking at that, when they opened it, how many times they viewed it, et cetera. So you can go in and see, are people actually engaging in your report? So really neat to be able to differentiate yourself and offer that beyond just the typical like, hey, here's what's in the MLS. Now you've got something that goes well beyond just the MLS data. So. Um, so yeah, so Amy, I know you've been kind of talking about this and showing some agents. Talk a little bit about kind of those use cases and some of the things that kind of the feedback that you've gotten so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think being able to leverage that when you're getting ready to go into whether it's a listing appointment or maybe you're having those conversations with a potential buyer, or maybe you've even already signed that buyer agency agreement and you want to be able to provide that additional information. That's where it's really come in handy. A lot of feedback that we've gotten from the agents is they just like the ability to have more information beyond just, hey, here's a virtual tour. Here is just essentially what you're seeing, or having to reach out to the other agent to find out, the listing agent, hey, give me more information. So it
Exactly.
just reduces the amount of having to go back and forth until you know that, hey, the buyer's really serious about this property, and now they've got this additional insight. Now they're ready to have further discussions on that. So it is definitely something, a tool that is super helpful on that. The other nice thing is, and I don't know, Brad, if you want to roll through the listing tool as well, because we have rolled that out as well, and it's very
Mhm.
similar to the buyer report. And it is, it really is a game changer in the fact of, and while you actually just went into it, back up just a second, because one of the things that we didn't have in the original listing or report that is now available in both the buyer report and the listing report is that once you've created it, you can now go back into the report and review it. So
Yep.
the nice thing is, a lot of times, and a lot of feedback that we had gotten from the agents on the listing reports is, hey, I made it and then I needed to recreate it, or I didn't pull
Make
it over
edits
to a
to it. Yep.
PDF.
Yep.
Yep. And so now you can go back and access it from there as well. So that alone is great on that. And so
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
want to
and
just
you
walk
can
through
see
some of these?
I've kind of gone through and played with it on a number of different reports. So to your point, you can see again when it was originally created, how many views it's gotten, some quick stats, and then you can pull up the details of that particular property and then make adjustments as needed as far as what information and again what we do is some of the data is very similar, but it's so much of it about is positioning. So whether it's positioned from a listing standpoint of, hey, Amy, I'm thinking about, or Amy's thinking about hiring me to sell her property, and go in and say, hey, here's the how we're going to do the marketing. Here's the marketing strategy. Here's our buyer profile, et cetera. And then, that other feature that had been requested is where it's like, okay, well, we're not going to do a virtual open house. Well, that's easy enough. We can, change that for something else and save that. So to be able to modify that is a key thing there, and then to be able to go in and access all of those those items. So yeah, we've gotten a ton of great feedback on these reports so far. Again, the fact that everything's branded and everything makes it such a unique value there. So
And we're pulling
um,
in the other thing that we just included is the comp section as well, which is
yep.
really nice to be able to showcase other properties. Again, to help with those conversations is to set, some realistic expectations to your sellers, so that way they're seeing that sort of in real time. Because I know a lot of you guys have to go out and start pulling comps and things like that. So being able to just very quickly have that data pulled is very helpful.
Yeah, 100%, totally. So let's kind of go through it again. If I kind of think about from the funnel standpoint, we've talked about that top of funnel buyer who's thinking about just price and location, then those that buyer who begins to refine and starts to kind of associate different amenities, different, smaller geographic beyond just I want to live in Raleigh to these particular neighborhoods or these particular condo buildings, etc. So we're narrowing the funnel there. We're seeing the next step. Well, remember we're seeing what homes they're looking at, and then going in and proactively setting up some nice curated safe searches for them. Once we start sending them those saved searches, they are more likely to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in this particular property. Give me more information about this particular property. So that's where those buyer reports come in. And then once all that happens, and typically around that same time, the other step that I would highly recommend is, so far we have focused mostly on the property, right? Because I mean, that's what that's what scratches the itch for most buyers is they're looking at geography, they're looking at properties, they're looking at, amenities around a neighborhood or a particular feature. They haven't really thought about who's going to represent them yet. Those things like those buyer reports begin to help differentiate you and stand up. But now we want some additional markers beyond just simply, hey, I've got some cool property reports that I can send you. That's where that marketing standpoint comes in. And that's where that next step, I guess it's step 4 or 5, if we're keeping track here, is really going through and saying, all right, now that I know they've been on my site, now that I have some data points, I want to make sure that when they're not on my site, they're still thinking about me. And so really kind of I talk about and kind of do a threefold retargeting strategy. So what that looks like is number one is brand retargeting. So you'll see a lot of this. I've pulled up, like, since we're using Linda's example, where a lot of this is you'll see kind of a very consistent Linda Craft, luxury, triangle home experts, see your home's value, search luxury properties. But all of these have a very similar kind of brand. So retargeting one is going to be making sure, kind of from a top of mind standpoint, we are just making their eyes bleed with that, that brand over and over again in consistency. So retargeting one would be the brand retargeting. Retargeting two is going to be specific property retargeting. So as you're looking through here, you'll see that a lot of times you'll have will be retargeting similar properties. So if we know they're looking at homes in Wake Forest, we will show, other properties in Wake Forest and Durham, etc., of her listings. And the other nice thing about this is, it's like, oh, well, here's a $600,000 home in Wake Forest. We purposely are obviously not showing the address. Why? Is because we want people to click on that ad and see, get them back on Linda Craft's site. So that is kind of that second tier of the retargeting, that threefold retargeting strategy, where not only we're retargeting a brand, but we are retargeting with similar homes. So that's that. And then the step three is retargeting based off of, certain features of brand new construction, move-in ready homes. There's one here that talks about, the a specific geography like Roseville, new construction in Cary. So all of these. So that third step is retargeting based off of feature. So if they're looking for new construction homes, or if they're looking in a specific geography, we're getting people back to the site that says, hey, search more homes in Clayton, or search more of the new construction. So once you have kind of those people who are going back to your site or have searched, this is kind of the final step in that, to make sure that we are getting them consistently back on the site. And again, what we've seen proven, to be most effective is, again, retargeting through brand, retargeting through, and I would put, like, these that are showcasing her, like, reviews and everything, as part of brand, retargeting specific properties, and then retargeting, I consider them like different searches, again, geography or features. And if you do that, that's going to be a pretty powerful retargeting strategy, where people go, man, I just see Linda everywhere. And it's not just that brand, but we're also showcasing specific listings and value to her. So I tell you, it's hard to beat kind of thinking through that funnel into that, that ultimate goal, where they're like, well, obviously I need to use Linda, or, whomever, because they're, they blink and it's like, oh, well, I just use Linda for finding my homes because she makes it easy. It pops up in my inbox. New homes pop up when I'm reading the news through, various display advertising, and she's proactively sending me, new homes. And she must be great because she's got, ads on Wall Street Journal and New York Times and all these different news sites, et cetera. So that third that step of that threefold retargeting is extremely powerful stuff.
And Brad, I was gonna say, just to piggyback off of that, you're still getting, especially if you have made sure that those people are on those curated safe searches, it's another, touch point in their inbox, the
Yep.
newsletters that you're doing, social media. I mean, this is just Google alone, but even doing your social media retargeting and all of that. So
Yep.
it is really just that staying in front of as many people as possible, and then just having those really smart conversations and using those tools that you have access to be able to show that value.
Yep, 100%, definitely. And by the way, this is a great tool that Amy, you actually got me turned on to this. And this isn't it's not that I can see this because Linda's a client or anything like that. In fact, you can pretty much search for anyone. So if you want to see what your competition is doing and the ads, or you need some creative inspiration to do this. Then just if you search Google Ads Transparency Center, you can put in a URL. And I tell you, Linda, I know uses this as well, is when this is a little bit more on the listing side of it, but still very, very powerful. Where when Linda is sitting down and again, I'm thinking I'm Linda and Amy's like, why should I use you to list my home? It's so nice to not what I say, not what somebody else says, but literally Google say, hey, put in my domain, lindacraft.com, to show you the type of marketing that we're doing on Google. And then they put that in and go, whoa, wait a second. These are all the ads that you are running to drive traffic, and be like, yes. And Ms. Seller, when now it's not just for, you know, pumping ourselves up or anything like that, that we are going to be promoting your home on the local news station, on Wall Street Journal, on Forbes, on CNBC, what have you, and then the list goes on and on. So that's an extremely powerful thing when Linda can showcase truly how she's leveraging the marketing for this. So great, it's a great opportunity to separate yourself from the competition on a listing presentation. Hmm. So the final thing in here, so we've really kind of gone through the entire funnel, as far as starting at that very broad, going down to right down to the branding. One other tool that we are going to soon be releasing on the app that's coming out, and we're going to be pushing this to the website. We'll give you guys a preview of it. That it's always good to sharpen your skills to see if you can, you know, once those buyers do come in, you want to be able to engage with those buyers. And so I am a big proponent of, sharpening your tools and going through, practicing your scripts and role playing and everything like that. So as a sneak peek, we actually have a phone number that you can call, and essentially what this will be is emulating like calling a buyer, an online lead, one of those, buyers that are it's higher in the funnel, where it says, hey, maybe they went to your site and the registration popped up and they filled out the form, or maybe they gave fake information and you went to DAC Lab and pulled their contact information from DAC Lab. And so you can go through and check on this role play and see how you do. I will tell you, fair warning. Um, I had my wife do this when she was testing the app, and she was like, this person's mean. That it's difficult. So the whole goal of this, and we got more details on the site, but just for this preview, the whole goal of this is you have about 5 minutes to try to book an appointment with Sarah. You're calling Sarah an online a buyer lead, and she will be a little bit difficult, and we've purposely designed it. We also designed some what I consider kind of conversation killers. So you'll be going through your spill, and then she may just reply with or okay, and just kill the conversation. You got to pull that, back up, because the reality is, I know I've seen some other AI-based role play, and it's easy because the buyer is carrying the conversation, and we know in reality that doesn't happen all the time. So give this a shot. See if you can get Sarah to agree to an appointment. In After about 5 minutes, she's going to come up with an excuse of, "Hey, I got another call coming in, or someone's at my door. I've got to go." So you've got to build trust and convince her to agree to an appointment in 5 minutes or less. So give it a shot. I'd love to hear everyone's feedback on that, and see if you're able to actually book an appointment with Sarah in that amount of time. I know Amy, you played around with it, and your husband John, he was doing good, and then she had one thing that she came back with, and I remember John looked at me and go, "Oh, I don't know how to answer that." So it's not an easy thing to do, but the reality is closing online leads is not easy. So we want to make sure people are prepared for that versus just stroking egos and saying, "Oh yeah, they're not always going to go according to plan," right?
Well, I was gonna say, we all know we've had those conversations on a phone call where you just never know. So you just got to be confident, and it's always good to practice for sure. There's never an opportunity where you don't need that practice. So it definitely is good. So I've actually added that to the webinar chat. I also included
Good
the
deal.
ad transparency link there as well. So if you guys want to check that out. That's great. And I think Brad, there's a note for you just to check out. We grabbed that, and I'll follow up with you guys on that.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, Alyssa, I'll send that over to you. I forgot to invite you to that. So for sure we'll get that there. But yeah, so give that a shot, and we'll have the call summary and our notes and everything, and a replay of this. But would love some, everyone's feedback on that. And if there's any questions, we got a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions that we can answer those. I see the chat. I don't know if we also have the Q&A enabled.
I
So
do see, yep, Q&A is up there.
okay. Good deal. So Amy,
Oh, to try and
and
close. Yeah, to try and close. So she sent it over to Amy. Alyssa sent it to Amy,
oh, good.
the number for her to try and close. That's
I
awesome.
was I was testing it earlier, and the time was ticking, and I had just gotten to where Sarah agreed to an appointment, and my time was running back. She was like, "Oh, I got another call coming in. I gotta go." And I was like, "Oh." So it's tricky. It's difficult. But and the neat thing is that we have in the app, not just the buyer role play of converting a buyer online lead to an appointment. We have the one where you've got to get a price reduction, and then a couple others. We've got to agree to a listing appointment, and then I think two others are if you get an inspection report that comes back, and not ideal, and you got to save the deal from that. And then there's one other one, I can't remember what that role play was, but there's definitely some fun ones. Here, we'll give you guys, I think you'll be able to uh we'll see if this works, but I'll give you guys a little sneak peek here. So yeah, so we've got price reduction. We've got to book an appointment. Um, Ray and Carla are interviewing several agents, and then once you have those unlocked, inspection report revealed several issues. Convert a FISBO. And then a multiple offer situation. So, and then we also have just an overall kind of a real estate advisor there, um, all our various tools and everything. So
I was
we're
gonna say,
in
Brad,
the
one other thing, just while we're mentioning that, 'cause we just rolled out the buyer, the new buyer enlisting tools on the app. When we do release that, we are going to have a feature where you can actually, because we know you guys are on the go a lot, you'll be able to actually talk to AI, and AI will go through your buyer report and your listing report, which is going to be great when you're, in the car on the go and don't want to have to just go through that entire report.
yeah, it's absolutely fabulous. I don't know if this version is going to work, but yeah. So here's you can go through and see, and then if you are, let's say this is your listing report, you're on your way to a listing, you literally can open this up.
Hi,
And
what questions can I help answer about the property or the listing report?
hey, yeah, so I'm on my way to my listing appointment. Can you remind me of the comps?
Certainly. One comparable property is located at 165 Millwood Drive, Clayton, North Carolina, 27527. It has 3 beds, 2 baths, and 1,538 square feet. It sold for 300.
So you can kind of see how that works, which is fabulous. So instead of having to, go through and try to read the comps and all this stuff, you literally can put it in voice mode and on your way to your listing appointment about 285 Denby, you can get up to speed on all of the marketing and all that information. So it's super handy to be able to do that. Of course, same thing for the buyer reports, contract analyzer, inspection, et cetera. So a lot of cool things we're working on, and we'll be releasing this soon. So we're excited for that. All right, Amy. If there's not anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today.
Nope, I don't see any questions. Obviously, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and then we'll be sending a recap of the recording from today's call, and hope that you all join us on our next Dakno admin training.
Wonderful. And on our next training, the third Thursday, we're actually going to be talking about the release of the app. And so if you be sure in the next week or so, when that pops up in the App Store, download that, and then we'll take you through. Because even we already have we have done quite a few refinements of the virtual staging based off of some feedback and stuff. So lots of cool things that we've got some enhancements in the app. Now we got to go backfill it on the site as well. We keep on kind of having that like new feature on the site. We got to backfill it to the app. New feature on the app. Got to backfill it to the site. So lots of that's definitely a good problem to have when innovation is happening that quickly. So all right, with that in mind, appreciate everyone, and we will talk to you all later. Bye bye.
Have a great one. Bye.